This week on Art on the Air features art historian and author Judith Turner-Yamamoto discussing her insightful novel, Loving the Dead and Gone, about growing through tragedy. Next, Cynthia Hedge and Bill Hallier for the Center for Creative Solutions plus the award-winning student poets. Our spotlight is on this summer's Chesterton Third Fridays with Hammond-Hagman and Rebecca Riley Vargas.
Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. You're in the know with Esther and Larry. Art on the air today. Stay in the know with Larry and Esther. Art on the air our way. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart.
Welcome. You're listening to Art on the Air on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, WVLP 103.1 FM, and WDSO 88.3 FM. Our weekly program covering the arts and arts events throughout Northwest Indiana and beyond. I'm Larry Breckner of New Perspectives Photography, right alongside here with Esther Golden of The Nest in Michigan City.
Aloha, everyone.
We're your hosts for Art on the Air. Art on the Air is supported by an Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Grant, South Shore Arts, and the National Endowment for the Arts. Art on the Air is heard every Sunday at 7 p.m. on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, also streaming live at lakeshorepublicmedia.org, and is available on Lakeshore Public Media's website as a podcast. Also heard on Friday at 11 a.m. and Monday at 5 p.m. on WVLP 103.1 FM, streaming live at wvlp.org, and Tuesdays at 4 p.m. on WDSO 88.3 FM. Our Spotlight interviews are also heard Wednesdays on Lakeshore Public Media. Information about Art on the Air is available at our website, breck.com/AOTA. That includes a complete show archive, spotlight interviews, plus our show is available on multiple podcast platforms, including NPR One. Please like us on Facebook, Art on the Air, WVLP, for information about upcoming shows and interviews. We'd like to welcome to Art on the Air Spotlight. It's a whole new project going on in Chesterton where they're going to have their own version of a collective creativity. It's Chesterton Arts District, and they're going to start this summer, Third Fridays. And we have Hammond-Hagman from the Chesterton Arts Center and Rebecca Riley Vargas from Three Moons Fiber. Welcome to Art on the Air Spotlight.
Aloha.
Thanks for having us.
So why don't you tell us about what's happening on that and who's involved with the whole creative district in Chesterton here?
I know. Describe what the experience is going to be like.
So we have created a group of art-related businesses in the Chesterton area, and you'll hear us use the term Chesterton Art District to refer to this group. And we are getting together on the third Fridays of June, July, and August to go ahead and stay open later and provide folks with a bit of a different experience, depending upon which business you're encountering.
What do you mean by that?
So we're really excited. So we're starting this collaboration with Third Fridays throughout the summer months here in downtown Chesterton. So June 16th, we're launching, and all of us are going to have a little special something while we're open late. So Pieces of Jade, which is a fabulous jewelry store with Jade McAloon, is going to have a pop-up at Red Cup Cafe. Willow is going to have an air plant terrarium workshop for $15, and they're also going to have free coloring book pages by local artists. Trusty Spot Records will have a concert in the parking lot that starts at 6:30 that night. Tickets are only $5, and then the shop will be open late. Duneland Pottery is going to have ceramic wheel demos, and the studio will be open late. And selling local pottery works from local artists. Mothwing Studio will be open with great projects. Holly Jackson Art Gallery and Studio will be open late. Lemon Tree Mediterranean Grill is offering a special meal promotion, a sampler plate of their delicious foods. There's so much happening. And South Shore Tattoo is going to be open late. You can meet the tattoo artists. We're going to be hosting Stephanie Swanson Jewelry Design here at the Art Center for a pop-up, so you can meet her and see her work. There's so much happening. Westchester History Township Museum, Township History Museum is going to start with downtown historic walking tours.
Oh my gosh.
So listen, it's going to be all the way up and down Broadway and a little bit past that. But it's good. It's a real collaborative effort to have us all working together and promoting the creative arts and creative businesses in Chesterton.
Rebecca, you're obviously going to be open too, so you'll be demonstrating what's going on there.
Correct. We are going to have fiber dyeing demos. So if you've ever wondered exactly how yarn is dyed, and we'll also be doing weaving demos and spinning demos.
And of course, you're located right there on 4th Street and Broadway, right near the Chesterton Arts Center. So what created this idea? I know like Michigan City has their first Friday. I think the Depot in that area has a second Friday. So what was the process of developing this?
So we have been working together as a group since last year. We did a walk through the town with Explorer passes during the holiday season, and we're looking for means of continuing that coordination and cooperation. And it was actually Dunlin Pottery that had suggested third Fridays.
Yeah, it just started with a conversation. I think we were all at a chamber meeting or a CBLT meeting, and we just started talking about ways that we could potentially collaborate and support one another. And it grew from there. It's a very kind of informal grassroots collaborative. And like Rebecca said, we kind of launched a little initiative last holiday season to do a collaborative shopping promotion. That was a scavenger hunt. And it was really successful. And we said, okay, what could we do next? What could we do next? And so Third Fridays is something we all could commit to. And we're sharing resources with advertising and promotion and marketing. But even beyond the Third Fridays, we're committed to helping each other and to, continuing conversations with all the creative businesses and arts businesses in town and sharing resources and helping each other out.
So I noticed that it's very spread out, of course, Chesterton and Third Coast Spice Cafe is part of it and Sweet Stitches. And so how are they able to, how are you bringing it in and out, I guess?
That's a great question. And I think, while the district itself is a little spread out, we're consolidating geography for the Third Fridays. So the owners of Third Spice are also the owners of Lemon Tree. And so that's a little bit closer in. And so there's not all of the district partners are involved right now in Third Fridays. We're launching on the 16th with a more consolidated group. And so Jade, who is located a bit further down Calumet, is going to have her event at Red Cup.
Right.
And Stephanie Swanson will be here at the Arts Center. So we're going to, get ourselves gathered into a downtown location to make it easier for folks to walk around and see everybody.
When does it goes to summer? When does there end date for that? You're starting June 16th, but when does the Third Friday part of it end?
So we're scheduled at the moment on June, July, and August, and then we will decide where to go from there.
Well, excellent. Well, we appreciate you coming on Art in the Air and sharing this great event for Chesterton. So it'll be the Chesterton Art District Third Fridays starting June 16th. Hannah Hammond-Hagman from the Chesterton Art Center. Rebecca Riley Vargas from Three Moons Fiber. Thank you so much for sharing this on Art in the Air Spotlight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And an Art in the Air Spotlight Extra, the Historical Society of Ogden Dunes presents the 4th annual For the Love of Art walkthrough on June 10th from 3 to 6 p.m. with a rain date on June 11th. Art in the Air Spotlight and the complete one-hour program on Lakeshore Public Media is brought to you by McCauley Real Estate in Valparaiso, Olga Patrician, Senior Broker. And as a reminder, if you'd like to have your event on Art in the Air Spotlight or have a longer feature interview, email us at aota@brec.com. That's aota@brec.com. You're listening to Art on the Air on Lakeshore Public Radio, 89.1 FM, and on WVLP 103.1 FM.
We would like to welcome Judith Turner-Yamamoto to Art on the Air. Judith is an established journalist and writer with over 1,000 articles appearing in various publications, the Boston Globe magazine, Elle Interiors, Art and Antiques, the Los Angeles Times, Travel and Leisure, and numerous others, which led to travels all over the world. She is here with her debut novel, Loving the Dead and Gone. Thank you, Judith, for joining us on Art on the Air. Aloha and welcome.
Hi, thank you to you both for having me.
Well, we're so glad to have you a part of the show and sharing your new novel with us and a little bit about your background. And that's where we want to start. Tell us about yourself, how you got from where you were to where you are now. So tell us all about Judith.
Well, I was born in rural North Carolina into an Appalachian diaspora kind of community where people either worked the land or they left the land to work the mills. I was the first generation in my family in 10 generations not to have an intimate connection to the land. But we found ourselves back there every weekend. And even though the little mill town that I lived in was only 12 miles away, it was like being transported back to the 19th century. My paternal grandmother, she washed clothes in a wash house with a wringer washer. She milked cows, worked in the fields. She chewed tobacco. She canned all her vegetables. There was a room in her house that was just dedicated to funeral wreaths. That, you know, because of course you don't waste anything, right? You preserve everything. And my maternal grandmother's house, the entire upstairs had been given over to everything that she had inherited from her family. And this included the clothes of the dead. And it was just this jumble, and there was this smell of mildew and dust. And I was terrified and titillated. So, you know, I really carried that stuff with me. As writers, we tend to use our art to process and understand the emotions we're feeling. And this story of Loving the Dead and Gone really began when I was 3 years old. There was this tragic death of a young uncle, and that memory conflated with later parental perfidies to become the novel. You know, because I think we do work our emotional themes out, and the core wounds that I was dealing with in telling this story were loss and abandonment, and how these four characters in this choral novel each experience these emotions along their path to redemption.
So, Judith, who was the first character that spoke to you as a child? Not necessarily with this book, but...
I'd have to say my maternal grandmother. She was, as we say in the South, too mean to die. And she would sit on her porch. You know, she lived in this small town close to us. You know, they were gentleman farmers. They didn't live on the farm. They lived in town, and, you know, my grandfather drove to the farm every day. But she would sit on that porch, and everybody that came by, she had something to say about them, some comment, most of which cannot be repeated here. But there was just this, she was so keenly aware of her environment and the people in it. And there was also a lot of, superstition. You know, it's like, oh my God, you can't leave a hat on the bed. You can't open an umbrella in the house. You'll never get married. You know, and you can't go in a different door than what, you know, go out a different door than what you came in when you visit someone. You know, it's
don't
terrible
step on a crack.
Well, yeah, I don't even think we got that banal. They were much more horrible than that. But there's that sort of like, what is it? Sort of like that advanced thinking about dread that permeated everything, I think.
So I think I was mostly referring to the actual writing. Was there, when you were a child, were you writing stories?
Well, I did write a story when I was 7, The Bad Little Pony. But, you know, I come from a place where I was a voracious reader, but this was a place where you were not given permission to be anything. And the idea of thinking that you were something was seen as something very negative. It's kind of like, who do you think you are? Having your big ideas, right? And I even had my mother say that to me many times in my life. But, you know, the idea of storytelling really first came to me when I was an undergraduate student. I was a Spanish major. I took an art history course, and the professor just went crazy over how I wrote about art. And she said, you should be an art critic. You know, your descriptive skills are so incredible. Well, no one had ever told me I could be anything. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to be it. And I went right over to the registrar's office and, you know, added another major at that point. And that path of learning to describe what you see and what emotions seeing those things evokes was really the foundation of all my writing.
Let's explore that for a minute. Tell us a little bit about your art history criticism life before in the novel. I mean, I think that'd be very interesting how you teed that up. So I'd like to see how you did that and how that evolved for your livelihood.
Yeah, well, I started writing on the arts when I was in graduate school at American University. And, you know, it's sort of that traditional kind of route that people took. I started writing for small newspapers in the Washington region. Then I broke into Washington Review for the Arts. And then I worked for Harry Lunn, who is one of the most influential people in the world of art photography. He's really was the person who made photography something that people wanted to collect and pay a lot of money for. And so I was hanging out with the likes of Ansel Adams and Beaumont Newhall and Robert Mapplethorpe and Bill Eggleston and that kind of thing. And so through that job, I became an expert on photography, and I went to the Smithsonian to CITES, which is the traveling exhibition arm, and I became the photography project director. And, you know, the Smithsonian is incredibly respected. So then when I would begin to pitch national magazines, I had this platform, if you will, even back in the day, from which I was writing, this place of authority that was just gold in helping me advance that career as a writer. And you go along and you have editors who push you beyond just the arts. And soon, you know, I was writing on books, I was writing on dance, I was writing on architecture, travel, and it just expanded. You know, I did everything but hard news. So that was that career. And I had this parallel track at the same time where I was writing fiction. I started taking classes, and Washington, D.C. is an incredibly resource-rich community. And I was able to study with a lot of great writers and writing at the same time. So those were the parallel tracks. But when I took my first class at George Washington University, my first creative writing class, we were asked to write a scene about place. And for years had been trying to get away from this place that I came from, right? And disassociate myself from that. And lo and behold, the place I found myself in was in the general store of the little person that was right up the street from, you know, my paternal grandparents. I found myself in that world, and, you know, that's the world where I feel most comfortable telling fictive stories. So
a lot of your novel, which we'll talk about is sort of somewhat autobiographical, you might say, or you brought those elements to that. It sounds like, because I think the little person in the store thing, when I going through it, and I have to confess, I didn't get the chance to do it cover to cover, but I read various portions of it and I caught that part. So.
Yeah, yes, it sounds surreal, but that was the thing about growing up in this place. If you are in these small communities, there are sort of Diane Arbus moments that permeate that world, but everyone takes them in stride. They're just part of, the way the world is. But for me, as a child, and I think a sensitive child who had like an antenna going for these things, I found a lot of it terrifying. So, it's just like I'm in this store and everything's so tiny. I felt like Alice in Wonderland, yes?
There, you said you found quite a bit of it terrifying. Can you mention a few other, and it's probably in the book as well, but can you bring up some of those memories?
Well, I don't know. There's a kind of a grotesque edge to things in the South, and I think that comes through in a lot of Southern Gothic literature. You certainly feel it in someone like Flannery O'Connor. There's a brutality, just a rawness. Here's one. My great-grandfather on my father's side had worked in a sawmill, and he, cut part of his hand off, and, they just because it was convenient for them, this was before workers' rights or whatnot, they just took half his arm, right? So he was missing an arm. I mean, he was so scary to me. I couldn't even, get anywhere near him. That kind of, it was just way too much for me. Yeah.
Well, one of the things looking at your book and reading through was the descriptions. There's so much, there that you can visualize what you're discussing in there. You create the environment and everything like that. And I think that's important for the reader. And of course, your characters you can tell they seem like real people. Maybe this would be a good time for you to share something from your novel with our audience.
Sure. I'm going to read the first 2 pages just to give us a sense of how the book does open. There's been this tragedy, and what we're going to see is it's like a stone in a pond, and there are these ripples that go out and impact these 4 people that we're going to hear from. And the first one is Clayton. Chapter 1, 1963, Clayton. The day Donald Ray Spencer was killed, he caught 4 catfish. I found them right there beside him on the floorboard, wrapped in yesterday's paper. They looked as surprised to be dead as the boy did. He lay there all slumped over the passenger seat, his left eye staring right back at the fish. I'd come out fishing myself that Friday. A man couldn't work on a spring afternoon like that. Hot, like the first day of summer. The sun made everything green come up looking brighter than you ever remembered. You wanted to sleep, the earth was working so hard. And I didn't know a better place to do that than at the end of a fishing pole. Days like that, Goldridge almost deserved its name. The smell of the earth rose up sweet and clean from acres and acres of plowed furrows, like something precious forgotten. In a place where farming is everything, it was easy to go blind to the rolling green hills and piney woods that made up this plateau between the Carolina coast and the Appalachian Mountains. To curse the red clay for what's missing, instead of praising it for what it's got. I'd been putting in corn all that morning for my daddy. Berta May says I'm a fool to work for him like I do, since I don't get a red cent from what he grows in the fields he still calls his own. And I say, look how cheap he rents me the land I do use. Berta May never looks at what she has, just at what she thinks she ought to have. And that's a big part of what makes her so miserable. It must have been 3 o'clock by the time I got my equipment put up and my dinner ate back at the house. Driving the gravel road, snaking down to Ramsey Lake, the dirt rose behind me in big clouds that showed yellow against the blue sky. The dirt on both sides looked like orange ribbons rolled out in welcome. When I first came around the bend, everything looked fine. I saw Buford's car and Donald Ray's old Chevy parked in front. And I remember thinking, I'm not the only man that can't think straight in weather like this. Donald Ray was working third shift. He had his days to kill. And Buford Jones was a little bit of a mental case and didn't do a thing but lay drunk. And he could do that at the lake as well as anywhere else. Then I saw Buford's car had crashed into the back of Donald Ray's, the twisted grill resting in what had been the back seat. Here's 2 dead men, I thought, and that crackerjack day took some kind of turn. I got out, not wanting to look, but knowing I had to, being the first one to find them and all. Buford's radiator was still hissing. His car was empty, and he was nowhere around. Probably down in the woods without a scratch on him, hugging a pint, waiting for the whole thing to clear out. There was a complete quiet over things. A fish jumped and then hit the lake with a hollow slap. I watched the circles on the water surface grow and grow until they didn't count as circles anymore. I opened Donald Ray's passenger door, reached for the boy's right wrist where it hung limp over the seat. The flesh was warm but lifeless, and the strange contradiction made my heart pound. Either the boy had just died or the sun was playing tricks. I didn't know enough about such things to be able to tell the difference. The boy was 19, maybe, not a day more. I took Donald Ray's wrist again to be sure. I got back nothing but an emptiness I felt deep inside. Donald Ray didn't look like he'd suffered. More like he just slipped away, as if the going was all right by him.
And that's Judith Turner-Yamamoto's new novel, Loving the Dead and Gone.
So appreciate when an author reads their work. That was so beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Esther.
Yes.
So can I ask you about a particular passage in the book? And
Yeah.
And I'm also just going to briefly read it. Llewellyn wrote him the whole time he was overseas, sometimes twice a day. He never wrote back, never mentioned the letters once he was home. She found them at the bottom of his trunk, yellowed, crumpled, dirty, and took them back as hers. It's so beautiful, but I want to ask you, what were you feeling writing that? Because to me, it was like he brought them back and they were dirtied and crumpled, implies they were possibly a treasured lifeline for him, but she sees them dirtied and crumpled and thinks maybe he disregarded her. And so it's kind of indicative of their miscommunication anyway. Is that what you were trying to imply, or what were you?
I think it was more the former, that they had lived in, because these were letters written to a soldier in World War I. So I thought of them as something that it was his lifeline, and he took them into the trenches with him, into that awful life. But those men put all that away when they got home, and I think the letters and that connection to her became part of that.
It's just such a beautiful way you did that. I mean, like, just that phrase, she took them back as hers as well. It was just really lovely.
Yeah, well, my mother, I can remember as a child, she had this like empty candy box that my father had given her at some point, and it was filled with love letters that she had written to him. There were no letters back. And I think that imprinted me, that sort of that lush writing, and it's like you're just writing to this idealized person who probably doesn't exist.
Yes. So, Judith, is there a second novel in the offing or something else continuing the stories of North Carolina?
Well, there is.
Are the characters still nagging at you?
Well, I've had a very strange career arc. I wrote 4 novels in 12 years, and along with all these articles and a screenplay and a ton of stories that were published. So the story that comes next is, again, set in this town of Potter, but now it's 1990. And I'm looking at that. What happens when a child enters the middle class through education, and that disconnect that happens in working class families? And there's a sense of betrayal that's explored, and so all of that. So yes, I'm going back to that same world, but this is a mother-daughter story, and they're the daughter is a performance artist, and she and her mother find themselves reuniting across the class divide because of traumas that they experience around the same time and betrayals. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's sort of outing itself as my themes, right? Betrayal, abandonment.
That's true. Well, we have just a few moments here. We want you to let us know how people can find out about you, your website, contact information, where your books are available, and your other writings.
Well, my novel is available wherever books are sold. Probably the best link to find out more about me, and there are links to purchase the book there at your independent bookstore or Amazon, wherever you would like, and that is turneryamamoto.com.
Well, we appreciate Judith Turner-Yamamoto coming on and sharing her new novel with us, The Loving, the Dead and Gone. Appreciate that. Kind of autobiographical in some ways of her life in North Carolina. Judith, thank you so much for coming on Art on the Air.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it so much.
This is Karen Maravilla with It's Just Serendipity, and you're listening to Art on the Air on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, and on WVLP 103.1 FM.
Art on the Air is now available on WDSO 88.3 FM Chesterton on Tuesdays at 4 p.m.
We would like to welcome Cynthia Hedge and Bill Hallier back to Art on the Air. Cynthia is the founder of the Center for Creative Solutions, whose mission is helping people discover creative solutions for their personal, professional, business, organizational, and community challenges. She is also the creative driving force of introducing World Creativity and Innovation Week to Northwest Indiana. Bill is a journalist and board secretary-treasurer for the Center for Creative Solutions and the chairperson for Northwest Indiana World Creativity and Innovation Week. Thank you, Cindy and Bill, for joining us on Art on the Air. Aloha and welcome.
Well, thank you for having us. Good to be here. Thank you very much, Esther.
Well, I think we want to talk a little bit first about the organization. And so, Cindy, we're going to let you talk a little bit about the origin and what it does. I mean, outside of the, of course, the introduction that Esther just did.
Well, thank you, Larry. The Center for Creative Solutions is a nonprofit organization here in Northwest Indiana. It was created some time ago, and it was designed to encourage a culture of innovation and creativity throughout our region. And we do this through workshops involving innovation, creativity of all natures. And we also sponsor several events throughout the year. Our 2 major events are an innovation forum, which always is in the fall. And then in the spring, we have the Northwest Indiana celebration of World Creativity Innovation Week. And that is always in April the 15th to the 24th. Interestingly, it always starts on the 15th, not because it's tax day, but because it is the birthday of Leonardo da Vinci, who I think most of us recognize as one of the most creative, innovative person. And So much so that we're still talking about him. And we're talking about the ideas, about creativity, his techniques, what he did to be so prolific in coming up with new ideas. And so we still study him. And we honor him at the start of World Creativity and Innovation Week.
Well, that's fantastic. And is this an organization like someone can join to be part of, or is just how does that work?
Okay, well, thank you for asking that, Larry. So we're always looking for great board members who can join us. It's a great group. I always say that the only rule we have as a board is we have no rules because we are the creative people. And with creativity, to some extent, at least at some point, you have to suspend your judgment and the rules. So actually, I'm borrowing from a quote from Thomas Edison, who pointed out one time that we have no rules here. We're trying to get something done. And I think we can all relate to that. So it would be great to have some more board members. We're all volunteers. We all take a part of whatever we're comfortable in doing. If we come up with a new idea, and Bill has always been throwing new things at us, and just in the last couple of months, we've decided to move ahead with them. And I'm not going to reveal them right now because I'm not sure he's ready to do. But we're really looking for ways to help our community, whether they're in businesses, nonprofits, in schools, in religious institutions. It doesn't matter. We just want to encourage people to explore their creativity and innovation. And I want to say right up front, this is one of the most important things I ever say to an audience, is we are all creative. So anybody out there listening who says, well, I'm not creative, this doesn't have anything to do with me, I'm here to tell you that that's not quite the way it is. We're all solving problems every day. And it can be in things in our parenting, it can be at work. It's just part of our lives and what we do. And we may not even be aware of it, but we're doing it.
That's true. I remember those first Beecher articles when you first introduced World Creativity and Innovation Week to us. And then it was mostly science, and the art came much later. And did Bill inspire that move to the arts, or how did that happen?
That's a great question. I think all of us have always been interested in art, and we've been fortunate. We've had a relationship, for example, with the Lebesnick Center for the Arts in Michigan City. But I think we also want to explore every avenue of creativity. And for whatever reason, you're right, that was kind of our direction. And I know that we'll be continuing in that direction. But the arts, of course, is just one area where we see creativity and innovation. Now, it's not the only area. Some folks think that when you say creativity, you must be talking about visual arts or music or dancing or other expressions of the fine arts. Creativity, of course, is something that is in every part of our life. And so but you are right, Esther, because in the fall, our Innovation Forum is going to be on the creativity of rock and roll. And last fall, the forum was on creativity in fashion. So right now we're kind of on a roll with that, but we are looking at some other things as well. So we're open to new ideas, and we kind of go with what our board members, the direction they want to go. And we, as I said, we are all volunteers. We're all trying to make our community a little bit better.
Well, let's kick it over to Bill. You were in charge of the Creativity Week, World Creativity and Innovation Week, and tell us about some of the things that are coming up and that we have done with that.
Well, many different projects. We had many different groups contribute this year and in years past with various robotics projects and art projects and our poetry contest. But it's interesting that Esther would mention art here and how art became a part of the program, because If you think about Leonardo da Vinci, of course, he might have been famous for his inventions, but he was also an artist. And I know in the past we hosted in Whiting an event it was called the Alternate Power Initiative, and we were looking for devices that would come up with alternate means for powering automobiles. And folks always said, well, you should go to the universities, to the engineering classes. And in my mind, the creativity actually began in the arts classes, because again, engineers, science, technology, and math talk about rules, Cindy. They're bound by rules. The artists, of course, live in a world where there are no rules. So you need the artists and the poets and the technical folks to merge to come up with the creative ideas that we need to run our world and to advance into the future.
Well, and we're going to get to it in just a moment, but tell us about one aspect of it with the young people, how they're involved with the poetry thing, real briefly in our last few moments here.
Well, this was the 7th year of our poetry contest. We started, Esther and I, all excited. We had 3 poets. And this year we had, I think, 260.
Close to 300, just shy of 300, won by 2 poems, I think.
Right. So we're looking forward in the future to really, it's a place where everybody, as Cindy said, everyone's creative, and in the arts and poetry, everyone can get involved and pen their thoughts or use an expression in pen and ink or colored pencil or watercolors to make an artistic expression. So it's really a good way to get all of the young people involved.
So let's take a listen to those in just the next moment here and hear some of the poems created by these young people. Well, one part of Creativity Week that we've talked about is the poetry competition. Esther, tell us about how the students get involved in that.
They participated in the Center for Creative Solutions' 7th annual Poetry Showcase in conjunction with World Creativity and Innovation Week. All these students placed in the showcase and will read their poems. Thank you for joining us on Art on the Air. Aloha and welcome. And I just wanted to say congratulations. It was impressive work all around. Thank you. We would like to welcome a few of the talented students from Queen of All Saints Catholic School in Michigan City, Indiana. These students submitted poems and placed in the 7th annual Center for Creative Solutions Poetry Showcase for the World Creativity and Innovation Week. A special thank you to the teachers and staff, actually the whole school, for dedicating time and embracing the Poetry Showcase and delighting us for the last 6 years. Aloha and welcome to Art on the Air, everyone. We can't wait to hear your poems.
Thank you for having us.
Mrs. Zervis, can you give us some background on the school's participation in the poetry contest?
So we've participated each year and have had numerous winners, and the kids look forward to writing the poems. So what we started doing was during their creative writing class that they had, introducing different types of poetry after winter break to get them ready for the poetry contest, so that they have at least seen some different types of poetry and are accustomed to what an acrostic is, or a limerick, or a few different types of poems. And some of their favorites are cinquains. They really, really kind of like those in the upper grades. And so once we lean in and make sure that they're familiar, and then we get your lovely email with the theme for the year, then they just kind of dive in and have a couple weeks, because our class is only about 40 minutes once a week for creative writing. And they can write whatever they choose once they really understand the theme. Sometimes for the little ones, it's a little harder for them to grasp, and the older ones just kind of take off.
All the poems are so impressive, and they touch us so deeply. So thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you for always including us in your invitation.
Well, we're anxious to hear them. So, Esther, why don't you introduce them along the way? And we're so excited to have you part of Art in the Air.
So we're going to start with the 3rd grade, and with the first place winner, Vanellope Allen. Can we hear your poem, please?
Summer is my favorite season. Sun and swinging. Ice cream, summer break, running, Queen of All Saints, Catholic School, Mrs. Olson, grade 3 H9.
Thank you.
You're listening to Art on the Air on Lakeshore Public Radio, 89.1 FM, and on WVLP, 103.1 FM.
And now with our second place winner, Blake Rice.
White ice mountain, white peas, ice cream, grass covered by snow.
Thank you, Blake. And now for our third place, Victoria Martinez.
Adam, acorns, pumpkin, trees, squirrels, wolves, windy.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, now we're heading to fourth grade with the first place winner, Jonathan Galindo.
Have you ever changed the order of a room, like you cleaned it up with a broom? Maybe you even got a reward for doing your room chores, like mopping the floors. There's a sweet satisfaction after doing everything you need to do, and you get to lay on your couch while you check your pouch. After you're done, you get to have lots of fun.
Thank you so much. That is so much fun. Now for the second place, Anna Nelson.
Changing schools, having new teachers, a fresh start, new friends, getting taught new things, everything new and old.
Thank you so much. And third place, Reed Fuller.
My life has changed in many ways, like me playing outside every day. My height has gotten taller, but I hope I don't get smaller. I hope school doesn't get harder. If it does, my brain is going to get smaller.
Thank you. Now fifth grade, Jack Brewery.
Cool. So many new people, changed so much, new shoes, oh, so many new things. One new friend, so loud.
Thank you, Jack, so much. Now second place, Brock Rice.
Change. Changing schools, new shoes, making new friends, Mrs. Neary, getting taller, and a new teacher.
Thank you so much. And third place, Eleanor Hopper.
Change. Cookies have a great choice in flavor. Great to eat and change foods too.
Thank you. Eighth grade, Grace Botchtub.
Change, change, change. The world isn't the same from when I was young. Slowly getting taller and growing older. New friends come and the old ones go. Your schoolwork is harder and your opinions are more thorough. Little did you know you are slowly growing older. The years keep passing by in the blink of an eye. You are changing and growing always.
Thank you so much, Grace. Second place, Jenna Parker.
Change is nice until it isn't. Until the place you once called home turns into nothing but fragments of your dead imagination.
Thank you. Well, that was so beautiful. I hope that poetry is something that, so do you, as a individually, I guess, do you write poems other than for this poetry and for your class at home? Do you think of things as poems and write them? You can just talk as a group.
Not really.
No, not really. Well, I'm so glad you at least do it during the poetry contest. Thank you so much. I feel like I've grown up with you because some of these names I've seen since you were in kindergarten. So thank you. Thank you so much, Queen of All Saints.
We appreciate you coming on Art in the Air and sharing your poetry with our audience. So we will be letting you know when it's on the air. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time. Now we are continuing with our poetry contestants. We would like to welcome Danielle Billings and her sixth grade students, Sophia Wilson, Julia Gates, Elliot Payne, and her seventh grade students, Mackenzie Darnell and Giancarlo Medina. They are all from Washington Township Middle High School, a public school located in Valparaiso, Indiana.
Congratulations to all of you. So, hey, Danielle, tell us a little bit about what you do in the classroom and how they got involved in poetry.
So I'm an English language arts teacher, and I teach 6th and 7th grades. And I had a poetry unit that the kids that I was doing with the kids, and they wrote a variety of poems. We had structured poems, but the kids were allowed to, and they were encouraged to submit a poem of their choice or poems of their choice to for the showcase, and that's what they did. And they just did a superb job. The emotion that came out in these poems was just fabulous. And the topics that they wrote about were definitely middle school type topics. Many of them wrote about sadness, some about happiness, and just different things that go on in the typical life of a middle schooler. And I was really happy, especially this year. I believe this is the best work that I've seen for my 6th and 7th graders. So I was just really impressed with them and how they were not afraid to pour their hearts out for this project.
Right. And submitted. It takes a lot of courage
Yes.
to do that as well.
Yes, ma'am.
We would love to hear from the 6th grade first place winner, Sophia Wilson. Sophia, could you read your poem for us, please?
So it's called Lily. Her eyes dark brown, almost black, her tail long but not curly. She was short with a small face. Her fur was light at first but became dark brown, her collar pink. She used to bark so much. Her bark was loud and squeaky. She would run around the house so excited. For what? She would curl up on people's laps as they settled. She would always be around, right? No was the answer. No, she wouldn't. When she stopped barking, when she stopped seeing, when she stopped hearing, only then she wouldn't stay. Only then she wouldn't be here to do the things that she did. Only then she would go to that place, the place where she would enter but never leave, and I would do nothing about it. They said it was a hard decision, and I know that. The day it happened was the day I felt a little piece of me leave. She was there since the day I entered the world. She was there every day, before and after school, before and after sleepovers, before and after I went to bed. Every moment she was there, until she wasn't. The day I left for my cousin's house, there was a picture I will cherish, a picture I will never delete. When I came home, I thought she would be there, but she wasn't. Thought she didn't have to go yet, but I was wrong. I stayed alone in my room for a couple of hours. When I came out, I felt horrible because I knew what happened, and I would soon be okay. Okay enough to function, okay enough to feel okay enough to feel okay enough for me to be me again, and not see her out there running around the living room, sleeping on Mom's lap. So now I move on, trying to stay in control of my tears. Of course, I'll never fully recover, but at least she's okay now. Over time, the wounds healed, but scars are still left in place. And every time I think of that day, I begin to cry. I try to remind myself that she's okay now, though it's still hard to wake up. To my special dog, Lily, I'll miss you.
Oh, I'm so sorry that happened, Sophia, but it's such a beautiful tribute to Lily. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
And now we would like to hear from the 2nd place 6th grade winner, Julia Gates.
My poem name is Nana. Do you remember when you held me in your hands when you first saw me? You made me cry when you didn't remember my name, and you made Reese cry too. You made life so good. I remember your cookies. They were so special to me. They remind me of you. After you left me, you made me cry. It was so bad. I didn't know what to do. Do you remember when I played at your house with the little cars? You made me scream when you couldn't walk. The little note you gave me, the dream catcher that made me think of you, that made me cry when my brother told me you couldn't remember his name. It hurt me very much when you left us.
Julia, those are such lovely memories, and you just expressed them so beautifully. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And now we would like to hear from the 3rd place winner, Elliot Payne. Could you read your poem for us, please?
My poem is called The Middle School Blues. It is also different. No more recess, no more snack time, no more fun. All of your worries go from getting to bed on time to getting your 5-paragraph essay finished. All your friends are suddenly too cool for you. More chores, more bullying, more work, more blues. It is also different.
Oh, Elliot, I think so many can relate to those sentiments that you spoke about. Thank you so much.
Middle school and junior high is so much different. Yeah, it sure is.
And now we're moving to 7th grade, and we would love to hear the poem from the 1st place winner, Mackenzie Darnell. Hi, Mackenzie. Can you read your poem for us, please?
My poem's name is Do You Remember? Do you remember the time when we were happy? When you would look at me with that bright sparkle in your eye? The times when things weren't so difficult? When all the odds of the world weren't against us? When we were able to talk without fighting? I still remember the day we drifted away. I still don't know how things changed so fast. One day we just fell apart at last. All because I wasn't enough. You would say nice things about me, but I knew they were a bluff. It all went downhill in just a week. Things may change, things may go, but eventually just let go.
Thank you, Mackenzie.
Yes, thank you. Some wise words. Now we'd like to hear from the second place winner in 7th grade, Giancarlo Medina. Can we hear your poem?
My poem is called Old Guitar. Old and plain I was, as dull as a hard dead tree, a person with no sense of creativity, until I strung a chord and feelings of free will and newness had begun, making music from old to new in just a single strum, like a guitar that's older than Thor.
That's such a wonderful poem. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty. I think that's all of them.
So I hope, and I'm going to encourage you to participate again next year.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, thank you. We so appreciated your school submissions tremendously.
Thank you.
That was Washington Township. That was the 6th and 7th grade. Thank you so much for being on, Danielle Billings, when sharing your students' poems with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we'd like to thank all of the wonderful poets that we had join forces with us this year. We really enjoyed, Esther and I enjoyed reading all of the poetry and really looking into your hearts with some of these expressions of joy and sometimes grief that you had. We want to also mention that next year we'll do it again. So be thinking of, we had passed out a poetry book this year with some blank pages in the back. You could fill out, come up with your poems for next year. And Esther and I and Cindy look forward to all the poets and all the poems that join us next year. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming on Art on the Air. That's Cynthia, Hedge, Bill Hallier, and of course our wonderful poets that we just heard. Thanks again for coming on our show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'd like to thank our guests this week on Art on the Air, our weekly program covering the arts and arts events throughout Northwest Indiana and beyond. Art on the Air is heard Sunday at 7 p.m. on Lakeshore Public Media, 89.1 FM, also streaming live at lakeshorepublicmedia.org, and is available on Lakeshore Public Media's website as a podcast. Art on the Air is also heard Friday at 11 a.m. and Monday at 5 p.m. on WVLP 103.1 FM, streaming live at wvlp.org, and Tuesdays at 4 p.m. on WDSO 88.3 FM. Our spotlight interviews are heard every Wednesday on Lakeshore Public Media. Thanks to Tom Maloney, Vice President of Radio Operation for Lakeshore Public Media, and Greg Kovach, WVLP's station manager. Our theme music is by Billy Foster with a vocal by Renee Foster. Art on the Air is supported by an Indiana Arts Commission Arts Project Grant, South Shore Arts, and the National Endowment for the Arts. We'd like to thank our current underwriters for Lakeshore Public Media, Macaulay Real Estate in Valparaiso, Olga Patrician, Senior Broker. And for WVLP, Walt Breidinger of Paragon Investments. So we may continue to bring you Art in the Air. We rely on you, our listeners and underwriters, for ongoing financial support. If you're looking to support Art in the Air, we have information on our website at breck.com/AOTA, where you can find out how to become a supporter or underwriter of our program in whatever amount you are able. And like I say every week, don't give till it hurts. Give till it feels good. You'll feel so good about supporting Art on the Air. If you're interested in being a guest or send us information about your arts-related event or exhibit, please email us at aota@breck.com. That's aota@breck.com, or contact us through our Facebook page. Your hosts were Larry Breckner and Esther Golden, and we invite you back next week for another episode of Art on the Air.
Aloha, everyone. Have a splendid week.
Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. You're in the know with Esther and Larry. Art on the Air today. Stay in the know with Larry and Esther. Art on the Air our way. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart. Express yourself through art and show the world your heart.